Hello everyone, I am Dr. Eric Morrison. This is 7 out of 3, and I'll be covering trading education using the TC2000 and TradingView platforms. Hello, this is the FOREX Week in Review with the 28 majors and minors and the 2 exotics, South African Rand and Mexican Peso. I'm going to start off with the weekly crowded out with FTM in support. I have had Euro Canadian dollar, Euro Swiss franc, Euro Japanese yen, Euro US dollar, Euro South African Rand, British pound, Swiss franc, New Zealand Swiss franc, New Zealand Japanese yen, and British pound New Zealand on the long side. So these were crowded out long and these were crowded out short. So there's distinction here that these were highlighted in purple and flagged in purple are mixed, right? So the institutional and retail don't line up, or your large and small specs basically don't line up. The dollar I had there, the Dixie by itself, just to keep track of the dollar on that. Then your cyan color flagged are crowded out short, but no weekly confirmation. And your pinks highlighted here are crowded out long, but no weekly confirmation. So for standard weekly trades that we had going here, just following general trends, which sometimes followed the commitment of traders and other times it did not. So this thing, as far as the weekly trade, was to the short side. It was crowded out short. That was a loss of $455 for the week. Aussie Swiss franc trended to the short side. It was crowded out short. However, it went down, and that was a nice $517 gain. Didn't do the mixed on Aussie dollar, Japanese yen. Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar. No overall trade from the previous week. It was not highlighted in green. It is this week. Overall trend for Aussie dollar, US dollar was to the downside. Loss of $186. Canadian dollar, Swiss franc. Overall gain for this week. Overall trend was $1,144. Canadian dollar, Japanese yen trending to the upside was a loss of $160. Swiss franc, Japanese yen trending to the upside. Overall gain of $1,471. One standard lot. Euro Aussie dollar, overall trend to the upside, gain of $531. Euro Canadian dollar, overall trend to the downside, loss of $1,307. Euro Swiss franc, trend to the downside, overall gain of $300. Euro British pound, trend to the upside, overall gain of $677. No trade on Euro Japanese yen. Euro New Zealand, overall trend to the upside, gain of $1,874. Euro US, overall trend to the downside, loss of $858. British pound, overall trend to the upside, loss of $170. British pound Canadian dollar, overall trend to the downside, loss of $685. British pound Swiss franc, overall trend to the downside, overall gain $1,150. No trade for British pound Japanese yen. British pound New Zealand, overall trend to the upside, gain of $1,399. British pound US dollar, overall trend to the downside, loss $176. New Zealand Canadian dollar, overall trend to the downside, overall gain of $315. New Zealand Swiss franc, overall trend to the downside, overall gain of $12.51. No trade for New Zealand Japanese yen. New Zealand US dollar, overall trend to the downside, gain of $574. No trade for US Canadian dollar, trend is up. No trade for US Swiss franc. Trade for US dollar Japanese yen to the upside, trend of $199 for the majors and minors. For the exotics, no trade for Swiss franc South African Rand. Loss with a trend to the downside of $776. British pound South African Rand, overall trend to the downside, loss of $165. No trade for Mexican Peso, US dollar South African Rand. Then last trade was to the upside with the trend to the upside at $13.26 on a one standard lot. Now that was the trend trading. Now, one thing that I wanted to note is in order to increase probabilities, we trade in the direction of the commitment of traders on a daily time frame. Kind of want to cover some of the nice trades that we had going forward here. This table here, of course, is the daily moves on the futures, just to show currency strengths. So if I'm trading just daily crowded trades, when it is crowded out to the short side, I'm looking for longs. With my follow the money indicator in agreement for confirmation. Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar came up with $20.40. Next trade was Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar. That was crowded out short, 71 and 62. Overall gains for the week, $167. Aussie dollar, US dollar was also crowded out short at 77 and 65%. One trade only was out on Tuesday, profit of $233. Canadian dollar, Japanese yen, one overall trade on Wednesday. It is crowded out to the long side at 60 and 53%. Overall profit of $85. Next trade was Euro Aussie dollar. It was crowded out to the long side at 67 and 59. One overall trade for $217 profit. Euro Canadian, that was crowded out to the long side. We had an overall trade on Friday with a loss of $141 on Monday. No further trade the rest of the week. Euro Swiss franc, overall trade from Friday to Monday was a loss of $266, and then followed by another trade that made up for it. Overall gain, $172, and just $400 gain on Thursday. Euro British pound, which is crowded out to the long side. We had one trade for the week on Monday. Overall loss of $467. Euro Japanese yen, they were crowded out to the long side at 68% and 57%. Loss on Monday, $503. No further trade the rest of the week. Euro New Zealand, we are crowded out at 61% and 57%. No trade the whole week. Euro US dollar, barely crowded out to the long side at 58 and 60%. Loss on Thursday of $454. British pound, Aussie dollar, crowded out to the long side at 62 and 53. Overall FTM here on Monday, nice overall gain of $790 on Tuesday. No further trade the rest of the week. British pound, Swiss franc, overall trade on Wednesday, nice overall gain on Thursday, $1,013. British pound, New Zealand dollar, two overall trades here for the long side, $591 gain. British pound, US dollar, overall loss on Tuesday of $340. New Zealand Swiss franc, nice overall trades to the downside, profit of $1,214. New Zealand Japanese yen, nice trades to the downside, a profit of $664. New Zealand US dollar, overall loss on Tuesday of $304. US Canadian, no trade. US dollar Swiss franc, overall gain of $845. US dollar Japanese yen, overall loss of $51. Looking at the exotics, doing this standard commitment of traders and daily entries for the week, as crowded out to the short side at 67 and 69%. To the upside, nice overall gain for the week of $787. Euro South African Rand, nice overall gain of $757. We're crowded out to the short side, 61% and 51% to the downside. British pound, South African Rand, crowded out to the short side. I had one overall trade on Wednesday, $246. So I want to start off with the Swiss franc, South African Rand. We had one overall trade. Commitment of traders, so it's crowded out on the short side of 67% and 69%. Nice overall gain of $1,134. Euro South African Rand was crowded out to the long side at 61% and 51%. One short trade on Friday, continued Sunday night. Overall gain of $774. British pound, South African Rand. We had one overall trade with everything in agreement on one day. Overall gain of $246 on Thursday. U.S. Mexican peso, we are crowded out to the short side at 60% and 53%. One overall trade Wednesday evening, closing out on Thursday, of $419. U.S. South African Rand, which was crowded out to the long side at 65% and 59%. And one overall trade to the downside, $67.36. U.S. South African Rand was crowded out to the long side at 78% and 56%. One overall trade on Thursday to close. Overall gain of $13 on one standard lot. Now, what I think is important to note is that whether you do weekly trades or the daily trades, I am confident that the crowded out trades for the week tend to lend themselves on the daily trade during that week and gives me a higher confidence interval in terms of overall trade in that particular direction. And there is not much difference on the weekly trades as it is on the daily trades, but I have a better confidence interval doing the daily trades. And as these commitment of traders change from week to week, I'm going to go ahead and keep tracking the weekly and the daily trades. So what we have for next week, we have US dollar Swiss franc is a weekly short, crowded out long 74% and 70%. Weekly longs, Aussie dollar New Zealand dollar, Swiss franc, South African rand, British pound, New Zealand dollar, US dollar, Mexican peso. Everything that's highlighted in purple is mixed. Everything crowded out to the short side with no weekly confirmation is Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar, Aussie dollar, Swiss franc, Aussie dollar, US dollar, British pound, US dollar, British pound, South African rand, New Zealand US dollar. Everything crowded out to the short side with no weekly confirmation. Canadian dollar, Japanese yen, Euro Aussie dollar, Euro Canadian dollar, Euro Swiss franc, Euro British pound, Euro Japanese yen, Euro New Zealand, Euro US, Euro South African rand, British pound, Aussie dollar, British pound, Swiss franc, British pound, Japanese yen, New Zealand Swiss franc, New Zealand Japanese yen, US dollar, Canadian dollar, US dollar, Japanese yen, US dollar, South African rand, and South African rand, Japanese yen. So just to reconfirm the differences between the crowded out pairs on the daily using weekly information, gains were $6,313. Just using standard trend trading, gains were $6,476. With a better confidence interval on the crowded trades and less risk of whipsaw on trend reversals. So if you're interested in these kind of strategies going forward, programming in both PineScript or Python, and auto trading, click on the links below. And remember, ruthless risk management. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll see you on Sunday. Well, if you like this video, hit the like rumble button below and the subscribe button. And if you want more information, click the course information links below. On the TradingView link and on TC2000, I have an affiliate link. If you open up a TC2000 account, you will receive a $25 discount using that link. Thank you for your time.